But you use a word processor, I presume?
Yes, I do, yeah.
And what software do you use?
I've used Word up to now, but I've just got Libre Office, and that's a very good alternative to Word, and it produces docx files which are uploadable to Amazon if you're self-publishing. So that's really handy, which is what I do. Yeah. Have
you ever considered writing a trilogy?
Yes. In fact, my last book, Estaris, that's going to be one of a trilogy, and in fact I'm about halfway through that, and I put it to one side because the response was I didn't have the response that I wanted from Estaris, so I've put that on the back burner for a while, and I'm writing a different book altogether. But yeah, trilogy. I like the idea of a trilogy because your characters are already, once you've written the first one, all your characters are established and you know them, so it's easier to write, and you can concentrate on the story rather than just the characters.
Estaris is more of an adult's book, but I was wondering, would you write a children's book?
Yes, I have toyed with the idea of a children's book, and I've got some ideas for a children's book, but I haven't done anything about it yet. But my second book, Saving Innocence, is about a story about children and the characters of children. So it's not actually a children's book, but I enjoyed writing from the viewpoint of a child, which is quite interesting.
Okay. How about romance? Is that
romance? Yeah, I always try to put a little bit of romance in the story because there's always a bit of a frisson between some of the characters. So and Tumbleweed, which is my first book, that is a kind of like a romance. Well, it is a romance. It's I cry at the end of it, and I know what's going to happen.
Oh, that's lovely. Your characters, how do you describe them? How do you go about? I don't spend a lot of time describing the characters. I kind of like do basic sort of description, the hair and whether they're a large person or a small person. But I like to leave that up to the reader, because if most people, I think, are like me when they read, you kind of like have an idea what the character looks like, even though someone's described it. So I don't overdo it. I know some authors prefer to really describe their characters in real detail, but I don't do that. I give a kind of like an idea of what the character's like. Okay. Do you have many characters in your books?
No, I try to keep them down, because sometimes it can be really confusing if you've got a lot of characters, because as a reader you forget who you're listening to or who you're reading about. I know. Yeah, if you look at a book like War and Peace, how Tolstoy wrote a book with so many characters, I don't know. He's a genius, but I couldn't do that because I'd forget who I was writing about. And I think the reader's the same.
Yes, and I was wondering if you draw your characters from people that you know, or...
Oh, heavens above, I don't do that.
You don't do that?
Well, I'm not saying. Sometimes. People I meet that I don't know.
Yes.
We'll leave it at that.
And what do you prefer, writing in the first or the third person?
Well, most of my books have been third person, but I've just started writing. The book I'm writing at the moment is in the first person, and it's brilliant. I love writing in the first person, and I was listening to a Radio 4 program where they were talking about Charles Dickens, and apparently he discovered later on in his writing career that about writing in the first person. He said he wished he'd done it years ago, and I know exactly what he means. It's once you start writing in the first person, there's kind of like no going back, really. For me, I just love it. It's brilliant.
I asked earlier if you'd written from the perspective of a child, but have you tried from a female's perspective?
No, I haven't. I think that could be really difficult, because I've got no experience of looking at life through a female's perspective. I wouldn't mind having a go just for the fun of it, but I've written female children, but they've been characters as children, but they are sort of 12, 13 years old, which the characters, personalities are really similar at that age, so I didn't really have to to think too much about, you know, whether it's male or female. You know, they're both really the same.
How do you feel about bad language?
I don't usually use a lot of bad language in the books because I like to think they could be read by, you know, different age groups. I mean, they're not children's books, but you know, teenagers, you know, young teenagers, and that would read it. And I just don't like using the bad language. You know, it's just a choice. And you know, I'd like to think that perhaps a parent wouldn't mind their children reading it because it hasn't got bad language. It's got a few, you know, oaths in it, but nothing major.
Okay. Do you ever get writer's block?
Not writer's block where I kind of like pace about using bad language because I can't think of where I'm going to go with it. But I do get, especially in scenes. Sometimes I'm not sure where the scenes are going to go, and in fact, I spoke earlier about a notebook, and I use that to get over the writer's block. I somehow, by writing down and scribbling notes about the characters and the story, I kind of get out of that. Yes. But yeah, it doesn't go on for much longer than a few hours.
Right. So how does that make you feel, say, when the book's finished?
Yay! yeah. Oh God, it's wonderful.
Excellent.
It's wonderful.
Have you already got another book in mind once you've finished a book?
Sorry to the female listeners, but it's a bit like childbirth. You know, I'd never want to do it again. I'd never want to write another book ever. And then about a month later, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I could do. I think I'm never going to write another one because it's hard work and it's long hours and I wouldn't say it was stressful, but it's quite exhausting. So I never really want to write another one. But yeah, I've always got an idea formulating after about a month or so, perhaps 2 months, and it festers away there in the back of my mind. I think, no, I'm not going to write another one, but I have to start. I have to do it. It's a passion.
That brings me on to publishing. Do you self-publish?
Yes, I do self-publish. Amazon has got a wonderful facility for self-publishing, and it's great. It gets your books out there. You know, I do send manuscripts off to agents, and I've got a nice big fat wallet of all of the rejection certificates you get, as a lot of authors or would-be authors out there probably have experienced that. Yes. In fact, the one I'm writing now, I am going to send that off to an agent. I self-publish. I think it's wonderful. You know, you actually get your book out there for people to read. I think it's brilliant. If you've got an idea for a book, then you know that's the way to go. It doesn't cost anything. It's just the time and the effort of doing it.
Can you earn a living from writing?
Yeah, I mean, people do write a living. People do earn a living from writing, without a doubt. But a lot of authors, even reasonably successful ones, have got 2 jobs because you don't earn a huge amount of money out of it. The return is very low for the amount of effort it takes. But yeah, I mean, there are stories. Obviously, you know, there are people out there that earn very well out of it. But it's rare. But that's. But if you're really passionate about it and it's what you really want to do, then you do it anyway, regardless. I mean, I don't make a huge amount of money out of it at all, but I just love it, and I'd never stop doing it. Even if someone says you're not going to earn any money whatsoever out of it, I'd still do it. Oh,
that's fantastic. Would you speak at a book club or, say, a library?
Yes, I would. Yeah, I would, because this passion is what this passion that drives you. It makes you want to tell others about it and encourage other people to do it.
Yes. What would you say to somebody who has an idea for a story and they want to write their first book?
Do it. But it because there's nothing more exciting than putting an idea down on paper and seeing it and realising a story that you want to tell. But it does take patience, and it does take a lot of patience and a lot of time, but it's just like learning to play the piano or the guitar. You know, it's really hard work, but sooner or later the joy of it overtakes you, and it becomes something you have to do, and it's getting to that point, you have to keep on going until you realise that you can't do without it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I think I've covered all my questions.
Oh,
brilliant.
Lovely. Oh, well, thanks for coming here and asking me.
Thank you.